the right place. Hybrid scenarios in SharePoint 2013 with Office 365 and some Azure stuff thrown in as well. For those who aren't familiar, these are hybrid Legos. Okay, so there's a guy who developed these schematics for Lego connecting pieces. You can download them for free and then print them if you have a 3D printer, and connect your Legos up to Connects pieces or Lincoln Log pieces or an erector set or something like that. And I think they're pretty cool, and so I put them on here to represent kind of some hybrid scenario stuff. So there's a lot of Lego themes in this presentation. I was trying to use these as an excuse to my wife to let me buy a 3D printer, but she still has not given me that one yet. She still sees no practical use for it, so I'll have to keep working on it. So a little information about me. Stephen Heister. This stuff here basically says I've gotten to work on a lot of awesome projects with a lot of awesome people. If you have any questions about that stuff, please feel free to reach out. My Twitter handle is @Mr_Shyster, and my email address is shyster@xagility.com. I've been S. Heister at pretty much every organization I've ever worked at, so decided ultimately to just go with it, so it's easy to remember, shyster@xagility.com. Xagility is a consulting company. We're SharePoint focused. We do a lot with SharePoint, Office 365, and Azure. We kind of split federal work, federal consulting, and commercial consulting. But there's plenty of people here to answer questions about Xagility. I got a few friends in the audience here who are going to throw tomatoes and things like that. So first question that I kind of want to touch on, I'm sure everybody's kind of familiar with this question, but you know, it's good to kind of poll the audience. How many people consider themselves to be SharePoint developers? Okay. How many people consider themselves to be administration, you know, technical architect, that kind of stuff, server architect? All right, great. Collaboration folks, people who are mostly doing collaboration support things. Okay, great. Great. Now, how many of the admins here have had to occasionally help people configure a list or a library or open something up in SharePoint Designer? Okay, great. How many developers have occasionally had to set up a SharePoint production architecture and install the servers and do stuff like that? All right. And collaboration folks, have you ever had to like kind of pull apart some JavaScript that somebody put together, or kind of figure out some solutions work that was done previously? I see some nodding and things like that. So you guys are already kind of used to this hybrid concept because you all have hybrid roles. You all do, you know, different things, different job roles, responsibilities. SharePoint's one of those types of applications that, you know, nobody is kind of pigeonholed. And Microsoft is moving into a model now where even the architecture itself isn't pigeonholed. It can kind of spread across different environments. Okay. So we're going to talk a little bit about what that means for SharePoint and hybrid deployments. Okay, so let's talk first about kind of the components of a hybrid environment. All right, so when you're dealing with cloud-type technologies, you can split it into things that you manage yourself. Okay, so self-managed, you manage the applications, you manage the hardware. That's your on-premises environment, or you know, you might have VMs out somewhere in the cloud, but ultimately you're managing the, the hardware is on premises, the applications are on premises, so you're managing that. You have vendor managed applications and hardware. That's your software as a service, stuff like Office 365. Okay. And then you have self-managed applications with vendor managed hardware. That's infrastructure as a service. That's stuff like the Azure persistent VMs and virtual networking. So those are some of the pieces that we're going to be working with. Okay. And specifically, we're going to be talking about how on-premises SharePoint environments can be integrated with Office 365. Okay. The first scenario I like to talk about is kind of an introduction to integrating these two environments is OneDrive for Business. Okay. So is everybody familiar with OneDrive for Business, both on SharePoint on-premises installs and in Office 365? Let's distinguish the two quickly, okay? So if you have SharePoint on-premises and you deploy OneDrive, all of your users are given a SharePoint library, Okay, it's really kind of its own site collection, and you're allowed to store documents there. Okay. Same thing is true with Office 365, but it takes advantage of the OneDrive for Business components. All right, it gives you a lot more storage. Okay, it gives you the ability to share external documents, gives you anonymous guest links, gives you Excel surveys that also can be done anonymously. And let's say you're in a situation where you want SharePoint to be deployed on premises. You want to control the application and the hardware, okay? But you want to give your users the ability to use OneDrive for Business in the cloud. And there could be many reasons for this. The primary reason I've seen is that you can get a lot more storage using OneDrive for Business than is usually practical to implement on premises. All right, so OneDrive for Business, you can give up to 1 terabyte per user. Okay, if you try to duplicate that same level of infrastructure in an on-premises application, all right, it's much, much more expensive. All right, so how does this happen? Okay, you have your on-premise SharePoint environment. All right, you configure it so that when a user clicks on the OneDrive navigation pane or link, it tries to determine what audience the user belongs to. If the user in an audience that is enabled for OneDrive Online, it redirects them to OneDrive for Business and Office 365. If they're in an audience that isn't part of that OneDrive for Business Online, they can use their on-premises OneDrive, or you can disable OneDrive for their use. Okay? And then the reverse can also happen. The user is in Office 365, they click OneDrive for Business in the navigation bar, they're going to be directed to their OneDrive for Business and Office 365. Slides are still advancing. All right. All right, so why might you set this up? All right. One item that we talked about was insufficient local resources to give your users what they want for personal storage. Let's say you're competing with Dropbox. Okay. Dropbox, anybody can go online, they can sign up for Dropbox, they can get 5 gig for free. And now you've got corporate documents spread out there in the cloud that you don't control, that you've got no discovery against, you can't implement any of your policies against. You want to be able to compete with that, but you don't have the local resources to give every user's 5 gig of hard drive space. Okay? So you want to give them something that they can use that allows you to still have your corporate policies and e-discovery and things like that reach into that. Okay? Let's say you want to implement things like external sharing, okay, anonymous guest links, okay, or Excel surveys, but you don't want to potentially open up your on-premises SharePoint install, all right, and have a potential security risk. You want that stuff to kind of stay local and private. I mean, that might be one of the reasons why you're implementing SharePoint on-premises rather than Office 365 as a whole, okay? So you want to give those features and make them available, all right, without necessarily opening up your internal infrastructure. All right, or you just want, hey, cloud storage is much cheaper. You know, you want to be able to give your users lots of space and not have to worry about provisioning additional hardware. So how does this work? Okay, so the first tip is that you have to have SharePoint Server 2013 Service Pack 1. You have to have a valid Office 365 account. Okay. You have to assign your users, add licenses, add users, assign licenses, configure directory synchronization or single sign-on, okay? Now you notice here it says if desired. We're going to step into that in just a second and talk about how that works. You have to find the My Site URL in Office 365. You create an audience. You configure settings in central administration. And then you verify that the redirect link works. It's fairly simple. This is an entry-level hybrid scenario. This is the first scenario I encountered. We had a customer who wanted to do exactly this. We helped them configure their identity management solutions first and then set this up, and it was a piece of cake. All right. So a couple of tips on getting this set up, okay, is to determine your navigation strategy early. Okay, so yeah, we know that when you click on OneDrive and you're in the right audience, it's going to send you to OneDrive for Business, but you should have a plan on how your users are going to get back into your internal farm. Okay, you should start with a pilot group of users so that you can work out any kind of authentication or information architecture issues, and then really the tricky bit is how are users going to take advantage of this, all right? Are we going to put any controls around external sharing? Are we going to put any controls about what kind of items they can store in the cloud, all right? And making sure that we have the policies and the abilities to enforce those controls. See, here we go again. All right, well, we're not going to reboot then. What we're going to do is we're just going to jump into our old school navigation pane here. All right. So let's back up for a second.